So it's my honor to introduce Phil Fersht, who's the CEO and Chief Analyst of HfS. Phil's a 20-year veteran of service and technology industry. He founded HfS in 2010. He wrote the first piece on RPA 5 years ago. So this was even before we had an RPA product, or I don't think even the word RPA had probably been coined. They've also come up with the concept of One Office, which I'm sure he's going to talk about. HfS has a website and a very popular blog, 2 million visitors every year. So one of the key analysts in this industry talking about RPA, AI, data, IT services, BPO, how it's all being impacted. So please put your hand together for Phil.
There we are. Can you hear me okay at the back? Yep, assume you can. Brilliant, excellent. Good stuff. So I've got that lovely slot where I'm separating you all from lunch. Okay, make sure we don't get any feedback. It's good. Okay. So I'm going to talk a bit today about this touchless world we're moving into. I want to put RPA in the context of the digital environment that we're in today. Not just going to trawl through everything there is to know about RPA yet again. I want to talk about the context of the world we live in. I'm not going to spend too much time introducing myself. I've been in the industry about 20 years, 15 of them as an analyst with IDC, AMR Research, which became Gartner Group before founding HfS in 2010. I've also been a consultant at Deloitte, actually, of all places, and also with Everest Group. So one of the reasons we're here is because we're all fed up with the comfort zone, right? Nothing grows there. It's beautiful, but nothing grows there. So we're at etc. venues instead, right? And just a little bit about us at HfS. It was almost exactly 5 years ago today that we wrote this rather famous piece called Robotic Automation. It emerges as a threat to traditional low-cost outsourcing. Outsourcing's cheapest new destination, and it just went nuts, you know. It got into the Economist, Business Week, all the key media, everything. At the time, we thought it was something interesting to talk about. We did not envisage the following it would generate and the reason why we're all here today, right? But you know, we like to consider ourselves a little bit of a disruptor as well. We win a lot of awards and things at HfS, but we're also, in fact, that's a little old now, this data, but you know, we only have about 40 employees, and we compete with companies like Gartner, Forrester, IDC, which have thousands and thousands because we have a big platform and we can impact our market aggressively. And I think this is what companies like UiPath can do. When I first met Daniel a few years ago, when they were literally building this stuff out of, I think, his garage in Bucharest, and now he's living in New York. I think he's got a swimming pool and all sorts of things. But it's amazing how fast and rapidly this market has kicked off. Just a little bit about us before we move into the deeper stuff. We founded in 2010. We introduced RPA to the industry in 2012. We launched our blueprints, which are our famous reports which compare performances of software and services. We opened our India office a couple of years ago. We opened our Cambridge, UK office just about 4 months ago. It's our headquarters up in the middle of Cambridge. You've got this orange horse, all these confused students walking around wondering what the hell HfS is, but we have our global headquarters in the UK now. And we've also launched the Fora Leadership Council, the future of operations in a robotic age. And we actually have our first London event next week at the Andes Hotel. It's a complete sellout. We could have sold it twice over. And it's just amazing how much interest this area is creating. We also have a nice partnership with Cambridge University in artificial intelligence, specifically with Gonville and Keys College, Stephen Hawking's own college, and we'll actually be doing a conference at Gonville and Keys College next July. We also do our Fora summits in New York, Bangalore, and Boston as well. So that's enough of our pitch. So let's get into the agenda. I'm going to talk about this digital fog. I think that's kind of lifted, and now we've got this kind of touchless One Office that's engulfing everything, and I'm going to talk a bit about that. We're going to talk about why it really is all about achieving more with less. And then I'm going to finish up talking a bit about the challenges and the opportunities of RPA and artificial intelligence, which is really helping to bridge this old world we're moving from to the new world we're going to, which is not a comfort zone, as we know. But let's start with really talking about the fact that it really is all about data. This is a study that we're about to release to the market. We spoke to 460 major enterprises in the Global 2000, and we asked them what the business drivers were having the biggest impact on their business. And you can see here at the top, the shift towards digital, online, virtual experiences and moving away from face-to-face engagements is dominating the business priorities of business leaders today. They're also looking to make more predictive decisions. They're looking to combat the threat of digital competitors, and they're looking at the micro-targeting of customers and the hyper-personalization of products. So there's a data explosion happening, there's real disruption happening, and there's increasing consumerism in the market. We also, in the study, we asked them how structured their data was, and lo and behold, barely a quarter of organizations in the Global 2000 have half their data structured. Now, AI vendors will love to tell you unstructured's okay, but it really isn't for a lot of companies. There is a real problem with the unstructuredness of companies' data, trying to fix that underbelly to get things even to the point where you can consider doing machine learning, consider doing real automation. So I thought for a bit of fun, we've also just did a major study on digital decision makers, and I'd love to just get a view from the audience on, how does your company view digital? So is it about investing in new IT, new mobile platforms, cloud? Can I have a show of hands? Who thinks digital is about investing in new IT? Absolutely nobody. Is it about creating new customer experiences? Anyone thinks digital is about, okay, we've got a few people here. Is it about creating new revenue streams? There's a lot of people here, don't know what. Does your company think it's about aligning, harmonizing business operations to your customer needs, looking at all the touch points across your systems, really bridging together the front and the back office? Yes. Okay. Well, you don't have a vision at all. And so we posed this question to 395 enterprises, and if you bridge together 2, 3, and 4, companies now realize digital is about the customer, it's about experiences, it's about new revenue streams. Only 35% think it's new IT. Now, if we'd run this study probably 2 or 3 years ago, that first bracket would have been much higher, but there's a true recognition now of what a digital strategy is all about. And there's disruption. We asked the same group of companies, do you have the same competitors now that you had in 2014? 29% have different competitors than they had even just 3 years ago. And when they look out in the next couple of years, 37% see their competitors changing dramatically. So there is a lot of disruption in the market when you see how quickly who you're competing with is changing. And I think on a more positive note, we asked them if they were concerned about digital or were they seeing more opportunities. And 42% actually see more opportunities now than they did a couple of years ago. So people are seeing it more positively. They see the opportunity. They may be traditional businesses, but they figured out a channel to market and how to compete. Only 19% are actually concerned about the disruption in the market. So what's holding back businesses? So we asked the people about culture. And is their culture holding back progress in making real investments in digital business models? And 51% view it as significant to highly significant, that their real issue is changing from within. How do you build a culture to embrace a digital business model for your organization? Another thing that concerned us is there's a lot of this deer in the headlights impacting companies today. And so we asked people how far behind they felt their company was from their competitors, and did they expect it to change over the next couple of years. And you can see here, we took businesses who were performing the best, so people with the highest revenue, highest profitability, right? And they all think they're ahead, right? Even those with the lowest performance, only 15 to 20% think they're slightly behind their competitors. So the majority of businesses today they think they're doing great. They think they're well ahead of the competitors. And even though they recognize their competitors are changing, they recognize disruption is there, they feel they're ahead of the market. And we also asked them how much damage, revenue, impact is digitally native competition having on their business now and in the next couple of years. And only a quarter, in fact even less than that, actually fear there's going to be significant to existential damage to their business in the next couple of years. You see this here. So there's a real issue going on, I think, with complacency. People are aware that there's disruption. You know, they're even doing stuff about it, but they think they're okay. They're not too worried. And when you look at what's out there, you look at the impact on business models and the speed of change, I think that's a big cause of a concern. So let's realize that technology by itself really isn't the disruptor. You know, Uber didn't kill the taxi business. It was limited fare control, taxi access. Netflix, they didn't kill Blockbuster. It was the late fees, right? Apple didn't kill the music industry. It was us being forced to buy full-length albums all the time just because we like one of the songs, right? That's what's killing the music industry. Amazon hasn't killed other retailers. It's the bad customer service and experience that's killing other retailers. And Airbnb isn't killing the hotel industry. It's limited availability and pricing options, which is killing the industry. So not being customer-centric is the biggest threat to any business. Can we roll the...
Britain has had rude and unhelpful receptionists for thousands of years. Carol Beer exemplifies this fine tradition.
Hello. Hello.
Welcome to St. John's Hospital. My name is Carol. How can I help you?
We need to go straight to the maternity ward.
Right, admissions. Name?
Helen Fisher.
You don't look like a Helen.
No, I'm Helen Fisher.
I'm Graham Fisher.
You brother and sister?
No, we're married. My wife's about to have a baby.
Computer says no.
What?
Baby's not due yet. I got you down for next week.
Whoa. Look, her water broke, okay? She's having it now. This is urgent.
Right, better put you under urgent admissions. Just waiting for the page to come up. Computer's a bit slow today. Right, name.
Helen Fisher.
How did you hear about the hospital?
It's just our nearest hospital, okay?
How satisfied are you with the cleanliness of the hospital?
It's fine, it's fine.
On a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being extremely dissatisfied to 10 being almost too satisfied.
Look, my wife is about to give birth. Can you just call the doctor, please?
It's Dr. Seymour.
Computer says no.
Why?
We've got more than one Dr. Seymour. Do you mean the Dr. Seymour in the maternity ward or the Dr. Seymour in the artificial limb unit?
Well, what do you think?
I think it's probably the one in the maternity ward.
Oh, I think it's coming.
This is unbelievable. Would you just call the doctor, please?
Dr. Seymour. Dr. Seymour. He's not responding.
On the telephone!
Hello, Ticketmaster. I'd like to book a ticket for Phantom of the Opera, please. Yes, I'll hold. I'll call him straight after.
There we go. So if there was ever a good case for some RPA implementation, there's a business case for you. Excellent. But this move to consumer centricity is absolutely critical, and this is why we look at something we term as the one office at HfS, where here on the left side of the screen, this is the customer-first sort of digital organization. This is where the mobile engagement, the omni-channel reach to the customer takes place. This is where you can do a lot of design thinking around how to do an outside-in approach on wrapping everything around the needs of the customer, because this is where things are shifting. It's about breaking down these barriers between the front and the back office. How do you create a digital organization that can actually support that for you? How do you create like a nervous system, a digital underbelly? This is where you have your automation, your cloudification of process. This is where you look at RPA. How do you create an intelligent support function that wraps your processes around the need of the customer? I was with a client just on Monday. Actually, it was Bupa, the healthcare provider, and they were just doing everything. They decided they were going to make all IT decisions around the needs of their customers. And it was very simple. They didn't realize what they were doing was actually quite revolutionary, and thinking, if it makes sense to the customer, we'll make those investments. But everything should be wrapped around the needs of the customer. So if you're in finance and accounting or procurement supporting these processes, think about customer to cash. Don't think about order to cash, right? And then you have the intelligent processes within the organization, that kind of neural network where you start to look at predictive analytics, where you start to base things more on future-proof data points, not things that have happened in the past just for the sake of it. And then we can look at all the things we're talking about today, like where does RPA, where does remote desktop automation, where does this fit in the organization? It fits fixing that underbelly. When we look at the support functions, I love this phrase, human middleware, but this is where a lot of machine learning takes place, like attended, managed, intelligent processes where man and machine can work together much more effectively. And then finally, the emergence of artificial intelligence you've been hearing a lot about already. Where does that fit? How does that evolve? How do you manage that? How do you create a roadmap for yourselves? This is the one office. It's about erasing those barriers. It's about bringing everything together as one. So what are the fundamentals? It's about having more standard processes. It's about doing things more simply. It's about having data managed effectively and converging data. Data should be converged. If you're a professional today and you have siloed data sets, you are restricting your ability to make strategic decisions. If you don't have converged data, you can't recognize data patterns to do effective machine learning. There's multiple avenues now to source talent on demand. You can use gig workers, work at home, outsourcing, BPO. You can use SaaS. There's all sorts of ways to get your talent. How do you manage your workforce today, right? You have people who aren't retiring anymore. They can't afford to retire. You have experienced veterans. You have millennials. You have all sorts of people in your organization. How do you create teams of folks to work together in a flatter structure, in a more autonomous model? How do you manage them effectively without doing sort of weekly tick-the-box management calls, having more autonomous-driven dynamic structures and dynamic interactions between your staff? But at the end of the day, it's still all about doing more with less. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about, a lot of people I've met here today have come from different areas of the industry, looked at different levers to drive out cost. And here we run a study every year with KPMG looking at the state of outsourcing, for example. And you can see when we ran the study in 2014, companies were still increasing the offshore portion of their outsourcing by 20% for finance and accounting, 13% for HR, over 20% for some of these IT areas. Whereas when we fast forward to today in the blue, you can actually see that the offshore component is reducing. So people are actually moving less work offshore with their outsourcing than they were 2 years ago. There's been a big shift away from using these models, and there's a big shift towards what we're seeing happening in the world of automation. You can actually see here, this is the average quarterly growth of 75 of the leading IT services and BPO providers over the last 10 years. And you can actually see there's been this big drop-off, and it's now just flattening out and just beginning to pick up a little bit now. So the services industry in general, it's hit the bottom, and it's now trying to figure out where to go from here. And just for a bit of fun, we call them the Twitch providers. These are all your Indian heritage service providers, and you can see their headcounts since 2015 have been taking this dip, the combined headcounts, and now they're only adding a very small number of staff every month. So the whole of the service delivery industry in IT BPO has flattened out completely. But these guys need to keep their revenue numbers up and their margins, right? So how do they do it? And so they're doing an enormous amount of automation on their own service delivery. And this is why this is one of the big reasons why RPA has really been a big success so far, is because the providers themselves are adopting these on their own processes so they can deliver them back to their clients. So, going back to the study we ran when we're looking at big digital decision makers, we asked the clients how would they describe their journey towards their digital transformation, and how would they describe their partnerships with their primary service provider. And you can see here about a third of them, a bit more, actually look at their provider as somebody who is competent, gives you access to better skill and scale and flexibility, some domain, you pay for it, they deliver it. But look at this here, you can see the highest quartile of performers. These are businesses who have the highest revenues and highest profitability. 57% now see their service provider as a true partner that proactively innovates and invests with them to really help find these new thresholds of value. So the services channel has made a big flip from just providing competency to providing real value. And this is where a lot of people are coming here today to understand. We just heard from Deloitte as an example here, where we're seeing the management consultants now working in direct competition with the IBMs and the Accentures now in trying to do more of these transformative deals. But this is what is happening. The old model of outsourcing is dying, and this new model of partnership is very much upon us now. We're also, we wrote a piece about, there's a lot of these micro boutiques springing up, and there's many here today as well, and I think it's very exciting that we're seeing emerging companies like Ubiquity and Symphony, and there's a few of them here as well, who are actually really enjoying working with clients, getting more hands-on work done. So we're seeing a whole new plethora of, a whole new ecosystem evolving as we look around and look at the amount of people in this room, and I'm sure many of you are at some competitive products to UiPath in this venue, and there were the same number of people there as well. So this is a tremendous, tremendous movement that we're seeing in this market. So let's look at so we know what the good side is. We buy good software, it has tremendous potential, but what are the pain points in getting to this promised land, getting to this lovely place called Robotistan, right? So we ran a study called The State of Automation, middle of the year. We spoke with 400 major enterprises, and we asked them to describe their automation strategy. 31% are already integrating automation into their service delivery. So a lot of them are already looking at their provider relationship to provide them back with automation. A lot of them are in the process. A lot of them are trying to build a COE, realizing how hard that is. But it really is moving aggressively. And then we're getting some really, this was an amazing deal which UiPath and SMBC Bank announced about 10 days ago. And it really was staggering, the size of this deal and the ambition here. I took the shot off the UiPath website, but looking at 3 million hours being freed up in the next 3 years, 1,500 people having their time freed up to do other higher value tasks, that sort of thing. This is a massive deal. And these are massive metrics, right? I mean, the Japanese bank themselves press released it. They announced, we're doing this. They're proud of what they're doing. Japan has a real culture of automation and manufacturing. So to them, this is a natural thing to do. But this is the new normal. These are massive 8-figure, 9-figure deals that are suddenly driving this industry in a very different direction. How are you going to hit those metrics? What's going to happen in a couple of years, right, when the CFO turns around and say, right, so where are the cost savings? Where's the value? This is the new normal. And I thought it'd be really fun to compare, I call it the legacy outsourcing model, with what we're seeing happening in the robo model. Typically, you'd look at the value of a services contract over time. In an outsourcing deal, the transition would always go quite well. The client, after a couple of years, would start to realize they're only actually getting what they paid for. So the innovation and all that sort of stuff that they were force-fed when they sign the contract. They realize they actually have to pay a lot of extra money to get that, or actually the partner they're with doesn't even have that capability to deliver it. And then eventually, towards the end of a 5-year contract, they would restructure, they would figure out how to do something that is more viable. They may even change provider, that sort of thing. But you could see this curve in the contract. Now, I call this new model, because it is really new, so I call it the shock and awe model, right? It's, everyone does their training. They learn how to use the new bots. They might cheat on the blue prism tests. That's a joke, by the way. There actually was a big issue with people cheating on their blue prism exams. But, training goes well. The basic stuff gets operational. The client, then starts to realize quite quickly they need a lot more transformation to their data underbelly. They really need to fix. You've got to do a lot of MDM before you can do RPA, basically. And then they realize, they're not focused enough on the business logic. You need to start looking at outcomes, not necessarily input metrics that make this successful. And then suddenly you can get this terrific pressure when the C-suite comes back and say, okay, you signed a $100 million deal with Deloitte or IBM or Accenture, whoever. Where are the savings? Show me the money. And this is where, client has to bring in new consultants. They realize the COE they set up is just failing miserably. They haven't done the cultural alignment. They've got to reset the metrics. They then have to start to feel comfortable with whatever robot portfolio they've developed. And then they finally start to feel they're in a good place to move to that next phase. So, we're moving from a legacy model of outsourcing to something I consider, whoa, it's fun selecting a vendor and doing all these types of things, but then how do you manage this stuff? It's really difficult. And so my colleague Tom Reuner presented this, and I realized this is a really good slide just to show all the stuff you have to do before you can really, roll out robots successfully. You've got to figure out your customer requests. You've got to figure out what you're doing with virtual agents. You've got to standardize your transactions. You've got to have a much more dynamic case flow management. You've got to have there's all this stuff you have to fix before you actually get there. And if you talk to some of the big consulting firms right now, they'll tell you they're making all their money doing prep, doing the pre-stuff before you can actually do this. And I think what's happening right now is we're coming together, we're learning from each other, we're understanding there is a promised land. And it is tremendous if you can get it right, but there's a lot of work to do to get your data in the right place to do that. I think we dodged a lot of bullets in the old days where work was moved offshore, savings were driven, and no one really changed the underlying structure of their data. So let me just finish with showing you a little bit about the demand and where we're going. We're really experiencing something we call the Triple A Trifecta at HfS, and these slides will be available for download. I'll make sure the UiPath guys share them with you, because a lot of this stuff will be interesting to take away. But it isn't just about RPA. It's about smart analytics. It's about your artificial intelligence strategy. And it's a concentric convergence of how do you manage these three effectively. And we're right in the middle of this, right? You start to look at the synergies between RPA and machine learning. It's really exciting. How do you manage this machine just chuntering things along more intelligently? How do you start to link it with other data? How do you manage this almost like an intelligent transaction person to make it more effective? But the opportunity is massive, and this is just the US alone, right? We already calculate 3.5 trillion a year is spent on operations. 850 billion of that is automatable, and only about 2 billion is spent today. RPA is actually really small. If we just look at software and services and RPA, growing massively, but it's only going to be about $500 million in spend this year, and more of that's on services and software, and it's going to increase to about 1.2 billion, we think, in about 4 years. So it's growing really fast, but it's only 10% of the picture. So when you start looking at these broader automation deals, RPA is a great catalyst, greasing the wheels, it gets things in, but the actual broader automation is much larger. The digital automation, the opportunity there is actually bigger. And so when we actually get to the full space, where we take RPA in the dark blue, We take what we call intelligent process automation, which is the broader automation pie. So you have the desktop, the screen scraping, all the other bits and pieces that goes beyond that. And then the AI piece, which is about $1 billion. This is a $10 billion market next year. So it is already significant. It is growing. But remember, this is a catalyst for bigger things. And I'll be very interested to see what we'll be talking about in 12 months' time, where it's managing this and then how do we make this more intelligent. When we ran our study on the state of automation, we also asked clients about what are they doing with all these AI processes. Machine learning is being piloted by 45% of businesses, 21% evaluating. Virtual agents are really getting big. I spent some time with a bunch of leaders in the contact center business recently, and all they wanted to talk about was their virtual agent strategies. They're really excited about this. And what they're trying to figure out is the link between the virtual agent and the RPA, because it is quite exciting when you get behind the scenes and you really look at how these can work together. In areas like computer vision and neural networks, this stuff's here. This stuff's being evaluated now. But let's finish up just talking a bit about the benefits. So we asked folks, what do they think automation can bring to their operations? 52% think it's better quality. A lot of them think it's more agility. And only on the bottom do they look at FTE reduction and cost. So clients know they're not going to have this amazing silver bullet of cost reduction. They know that automation is about the value. The problem they've got is, we call this the automation catch-22, is that one of the reasons why they don't do automation is the immediate cost savings are not attractive enough, right? And they're not sure where to start is actually the bottom one. So while people actually say, it's not about cost, they have to use cost as the lever to get them to do this. And then when we look at RPA and we try to understand, what is holding back non-adopters, so why do people not, or why haven't they gone down this path? 41% talk about lack of clarity on business case, right? So how do you really, show clients, show people the real value of what this promised land can look like? And I spent I did a round table of CFOs the other day, and I've never heard people say no as aggressively as that. A lot of folks are looking at every way to not do this, and they go straight to the business case. But we do need to see more business cases, more people coming out, talking about why they're doing this and the impact of doing this. That's why I was so excited about that bank deal that got announced, because this is big. Those are big numbers. This is driving the industry aggressively. The other thing we have to really focus on is satisfaction. The current satisfaction rate with RPA installs is 58%, in terms of very satisfied to satisfied. So there needs to be more people walking away saying, this really worked for me. I've seen too many failures. I've seen too many clients experiment with this and walk away too quickly. So we have to think about how do you increase those satisfaction numbers as we move forward. So to wrap up, I think, we talked about this digital fog. I think it's really lifting. People understand what it is now. Traditional firms are finding that path. They're collapsing those silos between the front and the back office. That's really, really key, is to really think about making your organization as touchless as possible. The service providers, they need to be much more aggressive or they're going to fade away. I mean, this market is moving so quickly at this point. If you're just hanging on to old models and old ways of doing things, there's a lot of the new coming along to replace the old, and it's really happening fast. We're in the partnering business now. We're not in the outsourcing business anymore. I think automation has taken hold. It will take time. We can see out, we think, about 4 or 5 years. We've looked at the impact of automation on service delivery, on operations, and there will be impact on jobs. We don't think it's going to be dramatic, but there will be some. Beyond that, it is murky, it is scary, it's hard, it's science fiction when we get beyond that, but there's enough time for us to figure out where this is going, how to figure out our own career development. Our roles aren't changing overnight, they're evolving, right? We need to figure out how do we work with some of these tools and applications. We don't need to be coders, but we need to understand how to manage these things and how to work with a lot of different people. And then finally, it's just about doing more with less. I mean, this is a lot about where we're shifting. People don't want to talk to people if they can get away with it. People want things to be easy, touchless, seamless, agile. That's the world we're moving into. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope I know I've held you back from your lunch and stuff, but I hope this has given you some food for thought on where we are as an industry and where things are shifting. Do we have any questions? So, gentleman here. There we go. You can just shout.
Carl from Digital Energy Journal. It seems like the million-dollar question is where machines are better than people and where people are better than machines. But you don't touch on this at all. You're going to leave that to the market to sort it out, or what's your personal philosophy on that question?
There is a massive ethical question about people and machines and the singularity, and I think it is. I think it's a huge challenge that we have to overcome, and this is not going away anytime soon. Now, a lot of these jobs that are being automated and RPA'd away aren't the sort of jobs that companies are hiring for anyway now. People say, I'm not going to go out and hire 50 people to process my claims. You're not going to do that anymore. You're going to try and find a piece of software to do it for you, right? So there's a natural evolution away from transactional work anyway. And I don't see kids coming out of college today wanting to do these types of jobs. So I think there's a change in work type that's evolving. There's a big shift from the left brain to the right brain. The companies, we have some data which shows the number one work type companies are looking to hire right now are right-brained, creative people who are entrepreneurial. The entrepreneurial talent is where things are shifting. People aren't looking to hire left-brained operators. So there's a big opportunity for the outsourcing space as we knew it to service the operations of businesses. Companies are looking to hire entrepreneurs, and a lot of people here are entrepreneurs. There's a record amount of conferences going on right now. There's a lot of buzz going on in the market because people want to get out, talk, exchange ideas, views. People are connected like never before. And you know, we are going into a different world, and it's going to be interesting. My biggest fear is if we hit an economic downturn, and at some point that might happen. It's been a long, long time, and that will change the conversation quite rapidly. I'm also very concerned about Brexit, and in January, if we haven't cut a deal, there's going to be a lot of panic in the market. I'm getting a lot of questions from US people, big US organizations, who are seeing Brexit as only, 17 months away. There's no plan. So I think there's bigger impacts that are going to come into play than are our jobs are going to be taken by pieces of software. We have time for one more.
Any further question for Phil?
I'll be around for most of the day, so you can come and catch me.
Wonderful. Phil, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Thank you.